Welcome to the writing task 2 on the IELTS exam. Today we'll be handling opinion essays, and this is the first video on the writing task 2. So kindly pay maximum attention to this because we'll be exploring and exposing a lot of things that would help you write good essays. So this is the question for today. You should spend about 40 minutes on this task. Schools should focus on academic success and passing examinations. Skills such as cookery, dressmaking, and woodwork should not be taught at school, as it is better to learn this from family and friends. To what extent do you agree or disagree? You should write at least 250 words. And this is the question. What do you do when given a question in an exam hall, in the IELTS exam specifically? Do you dive in and start writing, or do you analyze? Now, if you dive in and start writing, there are two things that will happen. You either pass because you are a pro at writing essays, you are an expert at writing essays, or you fail woefully because you're not used to doing that and you panicked when you were given the question. So the second scenario I cited is the case for most of you watching this video. The best thing you should do and you can do for yourself before getting to the exam hall is learning how to do your question analysis, because the question analysis helps you draft out a plan that you use in writing the rest of your essay. So, but before you do that, we need to understand what makes a good essay. So, is it an essay, a good essay, an essay that is made up of big words? No. Is it an essay that is made up of a list of ideas with none of them being properly expanded? No. So a good essay is one that addresses the prompt or the question directly. And the question we read is about what should be the focus in schools. Is it the theoretical examinations or vocational subjects? So you should address the prompts. Don't write on something completely unrelated to what you've been asked. Comply with all specified instructions, example, word count and limitations. The specified instruction for the question I read earlier in the last slide is that you should write not less than 250 words. So if you write less than that, you'll be penalized for on tax achievement. You're not going to get the full marks on tax achievement, and you need to write more than 250 words for you to score a good band score. So in as much as you focus on every other thing, make sure that you comply with all given instructions. Never write less than 250 words or any number of words that might be given in the exam. Maintain clarity and accessibility for the audience. So this is, in simple terms, this means using, you are supposed to use a wide range of vocabulary, though do not use, in an attempt to wow the examiner, you try to use overly complex vocabulary that most times would be inappropriate to represent the information you are trying to represent. So you should use vocabulary that is as simple as possible, but yet able to communicate the information that you're trying to write. Ensure logical and appropriate structure. Your paragraphs should flow seamlessly into one another. So there should not, your essay should not be made up of paragraphs that look like distinct write-ups that you're trying to force into a single whole. So they should logically flow into one another, and that you're going to get marks or on coherence, and you should completely develop each idea you state in your essay. So this is why I'll usually advise that you limit the ideas you'd write at the beginning, which is your introduction. In the course of this essay, you'll find out that I'm going to tell you to limit your ideas to a maximum of two. In that way, for a given opinion. So in that way, you are certain that you'd have enough room space or enough paper space, sorry, to explain your points adequately. So if you just go on to list 6, 7 points, you definitely do not have the time to explain each of them. You do not have the paper space to explain each of them. So limiting the points you give to support your ideas is one fantastic way of ensuring that you stay within the word limit and you are able to complete your writing task within the 40 minutes allocated time. If you spend more than 40 minutes time of your time to writing task 2, you definitely will not be able to complete your writing task 1. And remember, the IELTS writing is divided into two parts: writing task 1 and the writing task 2, for both academic and general training modules. The academic module, The writing task one is different from the writing task one in the general training model, but the writing task two is usually the same. So you should take note of that. Now back to the question analysis. Now you've known the characteristics of a good essay, and then we are heading back to what the first thing I said you should do when given a question in an exam. Instead of diving right in, you should do your question analysis. Now, what is this question analysis? What does it entail? Question analysis entails identification of three parts of your question, which include the topic words, the micro topic words, and the instruction words. What are these things? Would treat them separately, beginning with the topic words. Now, what are micro topic words? Micro topic words are a word or group of words that represents the broad subject of the question. They are more like a universal set of the discourse, or simply put, that you could refer to them as the theme of the question. Looking at this question on the right of the screen now, I want you to pause this video and guess what the topic word or the topic words are for this question. After you do that, play the video to find out if your guess was right or wrong. So the topic words for this question is school. Schools, sorry. Why schools? Because the entire discourse is around schools. We are discussing whether or not theoretical courses or theoretical examinations should be given preference over vocational subjects like woodwork, cookery, and dressmaking in schools. So everything is centered on schools. So that is what makes schools the topic word. It makes schools the theme of the question. Over to micro topic words. These are words that tell you exactly what you need to discuss about the broad topic words. So I think this is self-explanatory. So they tell you you could, without identifying your micro topic words, you could go on to start discussing schools in a very broad sense, and that would lead to loss of marks on task achievement because they want you to answer the question and you're answering something else, something that is completely unrelated to the question that you've been asked. So this is the question on the right. You should pause this video, make a guess or what you think the micro topic words are for this question, and then play the video to find out if your guess is right or wrong. So these are the micro topic words. Whether your guess was right or wrong doesn't matter. You are here to learn, and that is what you will do. So these are the micro topic words, and why do they qualify as a micro topic words? Because for one, academic success tells you that okay, the question is asking if academic success that is should be the main focus, should be the major focus, and should be given priority, should be prioritized over vocational subjects like cookery, dressmaking, woodwork in schools, while these vocational subjects are relegated to family and friends to teach the students. So you see how these words come together to add more depth, to give you a direction on what to discuss as it relates to schools. Now you notice that I didn't pick every single word as the micro topic word. I didn't pick on, I didn't pick such as, I didn't pick and, I didn't pick as it is. So all those words, better and the rest, they do not really add more depth or give you a direction on what to discuss about the topic words. So that is why I didn't pick them as the micro topic words. So why is it important to identify your micro topic words? Failing to identify micro topic words may result in a broad discussion of the main topic, leading to a loss of marks in task achievement. By pinpointing these words, you guarantee that all ideas you develop are directly relevant to the specific question posed. I already explained this earlier. So this is why pinpointing microtopic words is very relevant. Example of irrelevance if you do not identify your microtopic words. This is an example. You might be tempted to discuss the history and importance of schools without connecting it to the question of whether practical skills deserve similar importance in academic institutions. This would make your response completely irrelevant. Now, over to the instruction words. We've successfully identified our topic words and the micro topic words. Now, we want to identify the instruction words, which is the last thing you should do in your question analysis. To help you recall, we said the question analysis entails identifying three things: the topic words, the micro topic words, and the instruction words. So now we want to identify what the instruction words are. First of all, we need to know what the instruction words are. They are pointers to the type of essay you need to write. They tell you if you need to write an opinion essay, a discussion essay, an advantages and disadvantages essay, a problems and solution essay, or a double question essay. Now, These five essay types I mentioned are possible essays that might be given in the exam. So in the course of this lesson, we would learn how to write all these essays, but for now, we are doing the opinion essays. And it is the instruction words that will tell you what type of essay you need to write. So we are writing an opinion essay, and what classifies this essay as an opinion essay is the instruction words. What part of the question serve as the instruction words? It is this last part of the question, the second to the last part, sorry. To what extent do you agree or agree? Why? Because it screams an opinion essay. They want to know if you agree or disagree with the question, which is asking you if the academic success and passing of examination should be given, should be higher up on the priority list when compared to vocational skills, and if vocational skills should be relegated to family and friends to teach students. So they want your opinion on that. What side are you standing with? So this is the result of our question analysis, the topic words, the micro topic words, and the instruction words. And this is the question on the right. Now we're going to make use of that result much later after we've generated ideas that we're going to write about. So, how do we generate ideas? We make use of the coffee shop method to generate ideas. There are two ideas, but for now, I'll teach you how to use the coffee shop method. And as the classes proceed, I'll teach you other methods to generate ideas. So, it's otherwise known as the direct question method. And there are four steps to doing this to applying the coffee shop method to generate ideas for your essay. So do this immediately, turn the essay into a direct question. After you do that, you answer the question immediately without overthinking it. Now, when they say turn the essay into a direct question, just like the name of the method implies, the coffee shop method, imagine you are in a coffee shop and then you want to ask your friend a question. You want to turn the essay into a question to ask your friend. It's going to be much in a much simpler format rather than the academic format which it's presented in the exam. So turn it into a simple question, ask your friend, then turn back and answer the question immediately. Then ask yourself, why is that answer sufficient to answer that question? When you do that, you're going to find out that you come up with reasons and examples to support your answer. So make sure that your reasons do not exceed two reasons because you do not have time to write and expand on more than two reasons. So and your the initially the first idea that comes to your mind is usually the easiest and the best idea that you should write on. If you waste so much time thinking of ideas, you're going to come up with really, really complex ideas that you mostly lack the vocabulary to explain, and you're going to have a hard time completing the essay within 40 minutes. So, the first ideas that come to your mind are the simplest ideas, and those are the ideas you should use to write the rest of your essay. So, let's apply the coffee shop method. And on the left here, we have the question prompt, and on the right, we have the application of the copy shop method. So how can you turn this whole question into a direct question? This is what we have. Should teaching vocational skills like cooking, sewing, and woodcraft in schools be relegated to family and friends? What's my answer for this essay? I'm going to say yes. You could decide to say no. But all that matters is whatever side you choose to stand with, make sure that you have points to back up your stance and that the points you would list are easy to explain and easy to understand. So why do I support that vocational subject should be relegated to family and friends to teach students? These are my reasons. These skills are time consuming. It takes time to teach vocational skills, and it also takes time for the students to practice and master what they've been taught. Then, second reason is that children naturally learn them by being at home with their parents. So, if vocational skills are things that are done every day in the home and children get exposed to these things, and that which is a very good way of learning something, it will be a complete waste of time to begin teaching these things in the school environment when you know that that time could be directed towards learning the academic subject in greater depth. So an example to support the two ideas is, okay, this first example is an example that supports the first idea. And what's the example? Woodwork students really have enough time. As we write the essay, you see how this is an example to support the first idea. Then the second example is majority of women cook today because they watch their mothers cook. This example supports the second reason I give to back up my stance that vocational subjects should be relegated to parents and family and friends to teach students. So now we've done the question analysis, we've pinpointed the topic words, micro topic words, and the instruction words. We've also used the coffee shop method to generate ideas. Now we need to know the structure we need to apply for each part of our essay. And then a good essay should have four parts: the introduction, two main body paragraphs, and the conclusion. If you go beyond this, you will most likely not be able to complete your essay within the 40-minute time requirement. Now, the introduction of your essay, as the name implies, it's the beginning of your essay, but the most important because it serves as a plan for the rest of the essay. It comprises of a paraphrase of the question, a thesis statement, and an outline statement. Now, what does paraphrasing mean? Paraphrasing means rewriting the question without tampering with the original meaning. It can be done in any one of these three ways: by using synonyms, by changing the word class, or changing the sentence structure, and finally, a combination of two or all of the above mentioned methods. Now, we are going to be using the synonyms to paraphrase for this particular question, and let's see how we're going to do that. As we proceed, we'll also learn what the thesis statements and the outline statements are. But for now, let's focus on paraphrasing what the question is asking to begin the introduction. So these are the words, the results of our question analysis. Remember, I told you we're going to use them after doing the idea generation with the coffee shop method. So this is the result of our question analysis on the left, and what we have here are synonyms on the right, synonyms to the words we got from our question analysis. Remember, schools can be replaced with academic institutions. It won't change the meaning of the question if we replace schools with academic institutions. So it's an appropriate synonym that we can use. Academic success can be replaced with theoretical academic success. Cookery can be replaced with culinary skills. Dressmaking can be replaced with sewing. Woodwork can be replaced with woodcraft. Learn, family, and friends still remain the same. Now, mind you, this list is inexhaustive. That means it's just a starting point for you. It gives you the words you could use directly in your introduction. But definitely, as you proceed writing the other parts of your essay, you are going to remember more words that you can use to replace other words. So, if you remember such words and the words are appropriate and won't change the entire idea of the question, by all means, use them. Instruction words should never be changed. So, you should leave them the way they are because they will constantly remind you on what you need to write. Now, this is the question up here. Schools should focus on academic success and passing examinations. Skills such as cookery, dressmaking, and woodwork should not be taught at school, as it is better to learn this from family and friends. To what extent do you agree or disagree? On the left, we have the synonyms of the result of our question analysis. I brought it here because we are going to use the synonyms to paraphrase the question and form the first sentence of our introduction. Now, I started with arguments persist on whether or not theoretical academic excellence should be the main focus in academic institutions. So, what have I done? I've replaced, if you go to the main question, I've replaced academic success and passing examinations with theoretical academic excellence. And then okay, skills such as, then as we proceed, I now went further to say, why relegating vocational subjects to be taught by family and friends, I now replace skills such as cookery, dressmaking, and woodwork. I replace all of those three skills with vocational subjects because they actually fit in perfectly under that term to be taught by family and friends. Family and friends remains the same. You do not need to paraphrase them. And you do not need to paraphrase every single word. You do not need to replace every single word in the question with their synonym. So paraphrase as many as you can with their appropriate synonyms and then leave the rest the way they are. You won't be penalized for that. You might ask, why did I start with arguments persist? It's an opinion essay, and where there are opinions, there are definitely counter opinions. And where there exist opinions and counter opinions, arguments are bound to occur. So it is safe to start your opinion essays with arguments persist. There are other ways you could do that, but this is just the way I decided to start this particular essay. And we are going to see how we could other ways that we could use to write the the introduction. That's the we could other ways we could use to paraphrase the question. And another option would be academic curriculum of schools should be centered on theoretical excellence while relegating vocational skills to be taught by family and friends. You've seen this. You can see that this is another way of writing the topic with synonyms, but we've still maintained the general meaning of the word. We've not changed the meaning of the question. Sorry. Another option would be educational institutions should be more focused on theory and students' optimal performance in examinations. Home management and woodcraft should be left to family and friends. That's another way of writing it. Now, what do you notice? What did you notice about this second option particularly? I replaced schools with educational institutions, and that's a valid replacement. If the main question came as secondary school should focus on academic success and on, and then I replaced secondary school with educational institutions, that would be inappropriate because the question said secondary school, and then I'm saying educational institutions. Educational institutions could mean primary school, secondary school, university, and that would be too broad. That would mean broadening the topic from what is actually expected. So the right synonym in that scenario where the question came educational with secondary schools would be secondary educational institutions as opposed to just saying educational institutions. So take note of that. A quick recap. Remember, I said the introduction comprises of three parts, which include the paraphrase of the question, and then I went further to tell you of the different ways you could paraphrase, which include making use of synonyms, changing the sentence structure, change a word class change, and a combination of any two or three of the above methods. Now we are done with paraphrasing the question. We need to write our thesis and our outline statements. After writing that, you know your introduction is complete. So what's the thesis statement? For opinion essays, this informs the examiner on the side you have chosen to write on. The instruction word poses the question you need to answer. So while the thesis tells the examiner what your opinion is, it is the instruction word that will tell you exactly what type of essay you need to write, which will also influence your opinion. So, what's the outline? The outline is simply it follows immediately after the thesis. It's a sentence that follows immediately after the thesis. It tells the examiner how you intend to structure your essay to ensure coherence. It usually contains the reasons for your stand. These are the words we got from our question analysis here, and we are going to be making use of them as we proceed. So let's apply the definitions of the thesis and outline statements to craft our thesis and outline statements. So if the thesis is a sentence that states to you, that tells the examiner what your opinion is about the topic, so how is it going to read like? Let's look at it. This essay agrees that home economics and craft should be taught primarily by family and friends. You've seen further that I have introduced newer synonyms here, synonyms that I remembered as I started writing, rather than completely depending on the synonyms I wrote earlier, the synonyms of the topic and the micro topic words. See what I did? I replaced sewing, which I replaced dressmaking and culinary skills with home economics. And then I replaced woodwork with craft. So this essay agrees that home economics and craft should be taught primarily by family and friends. The outline is simply examples to back up your opinion. And I said you should stick to giving two examples so that you would have enough time and paper space to completely explain in detail how your examples are sufficient to support your opinion. So it will first discuss how time demanding applied arts are before exploring the inefficiency of teaching what students see every day at home. So these are the reasons why you feel home economics and crafts should be taught primarily by family and friends at home, because home economics and crafts are time demanding to teach and learn, and they are already taught at home. So teaching them in school again would be a waste of time that could have been channeled to mastering academic based or theoretical based courses. So that's how to think about it. So if you read it together as a whole, you find that it makes a lot of sense, and each of these things flow into one another seamlessly. That is what you aim for. Every sentence you write should be a smooth flow from the previous one. It should not sound like something that is distinct and being forced to act as a single whole. So arguments persist on whether or not theoretical academic excellence should be the main focus in academic institutions. while relegating vocational subjects to be taught by family and friends. This essay agrees that home economics and craft should be taught primarily by family and friends. It will first discuss how time demanding applied things are before exploring the inefficiency of teaching what students see every day at home. So you see how nice that sounds and how logical it flows into one another. Now pause this video, digest what we've done, and try to write something similar for the same topic. Write an opinion essay. You could decide to side with the opposite view or side with the same view I am siding in this essay. So when you do that, compare what you've written with what I wrote. The words are not going to be the same, but the ideas should flow as seamlessly as mine flows. So that way you know that you're doing the right thing. So now we are done with the introduction. The next thing you need to write is your body paragraphs. And remember, I said you should have two body paragraphs for a good essay. So we'll start writing our first body paragraph. And in the you should have two main body paragraphs, each explaining one of the reasons you give for your stance in the outline statement. Never deviate from the ideas in the outline as it makes your essay not coherent. To write a good body paragraph, we recommend the PEEL structure. What's this? So what's the PEEL structure? The PEEL structure is simply an acronym that spells PEEL and represents point, explain, example, and link. So what is the point? The point is simply the first sentence that paraphrases the first reason you gave in your outline statement. And then the second sentence would be a sentence that tries to explain that point. The third sentence will be an example. It could be a real life example or an example that truly happened, or it could be a made up example. Now, that's one thing you need to know about the IELTS exam. The IELTS exam is not a fact checking exam. So, you're completely free to make up examples so long as the examples are logical and they make sense and they connect to what is being discussed in this particular paragraph and the topic in general. So, that is what you need to know. Then the link connects the paragraph back to the question or summarizes the argument. So these are the four building blocks of your main body paragraph. If you take this and consistently apply this in writing your essays, you find out that when you're presented with an essay, you won't need to think too much before you come up with a good essay. These things would naturally flow easily, like your pre. Now we've learned what the PEEL structure is. Let's put it to good use and write our main body paragraph one. So the main body paragraph one is going to be all about how vocational subjects are time demanding, time and energy demanding, as we stated here in our outline statement, which is the first point in our outline statement. Remember, look at what our outline statement from the introduction reads like. It will first discuss how time demanding applied arts are before exploring the inefficiency of teaching what students see every day at home. So this means our main body paragraph one will be all about exploring how vocational subjects are time and energy demanding, while the main body paragraph two will be talking about how inefficient it is for to teach vocational subjects in schools because students already are exposed to these things at home every day. So it is unwise to waste that time teaching it in school again, rather instead of dedicating that time to master the other more theoretical intensive subjects. So the point one, what is another way of saying that vocational subjects are time demanding? Let's see what we'll write here. Applied arts like home economics, cookery, and workbook often require much more time for teachers to explain. See, these were words I highlighted in red. Kind of makes it obvious to the examiner that in this paragraph you'll be talking about how time demanding vocational subjects are. Applied arts like home economics, cookery, and woodwork often require much more time for teachers to explain what needs to be done. Students, on the other hand, need even more time to practice and master the physical concepts they are taught. Without being told, anybody reading this essay will know that this paragraph is dedicated towards the time demanding nature of vocational subjects as a reason for us saying vocational subjects should not be taught in schools. How do we go further to explain that? If this much time and energy is spent on creative arts, which are oftentimes extracurricular, students might lag in performance during highly demanding theoretical classes. Now we're saying that because of how time demanding they are, if students are forced to do such courses or are made to do such courses in school, other of their courses which are theory based would suffer. What's an example we can give to portrays our point. Now, this is something you need to know in the IELTS exam. This example I give here, it's totally made up. The IELTS exam is not a fact checker. So you are totally free to make up examples so long as the examples are logical and they relate to the topic that you're discussing. They are the examples that explain the point you're trying to make. Your examples should not be examples that are impossible. So let's read what the made up example is. To illustrate, academic institutions around the country have reported cases of fine art students spending 3 whole days in school on a particular project. Now, it makes total sense, and these things actually happen. There are art students who spend days in school just on a particular project. Meanwhile, that is not the only course they have to do. Now, also take note of how I started this example sentence. I started with illustrate. That's called signposting. So you should not use it everywhere in your essay. It should not be done too much. You should use it sparingly. But most importantly, whenever you're giving an example, you should always signpost. You could either use to illustrate or for example or for instance. Any one of these three will do just fine. You don't need to learn 100 different ways of signposting because that's not important. What is important is the content of your essay and the structure. Now, the link. Remember what we said about the link. The link is simply a summary of the ideas you've been trying to explain in that paragraph, or something that links the ideas in that paragraph to the introduction or a part of your introduction. So this will be counterproductive if an engineering student was made to take the course. Now, in this sense, what we did here, we just summarized the whole paragraph because we started by saying that it's time demanding, and then if we gave an example to illustrate that students it has been recorded that students spend 2 or 3 days in school doing this kind of subject. So we're now finalizing by saying it's going to be counterproductive if an engineering student was made to study these vocational subjects in school because they are not going to have time for the mathematics intensive subjects or arithmetic based subjects. So this is the introduction and the main body paragraph one together. Pause this video, read it, and then craft your own main body paragraph one, just like you did with the introductory part of the essay. Now over to the main body paragraph two. We're going to apply the same structuring we did with the main body paragraph one. Now, remember, I said this main body paragraph two will be all about exploring the inefficiency of teaching what students see every day at home. What is another way of stating that in the first sentence, which is the sentence that will state the points that you're going to be discussing in the rest of that paragraph? Let's read it off our screen. Moreover, every student grows in a home, whether surrounded by biological or adoptive relatives, and cooking, sewing, and woodcraft are often normal day to day activities. Also, take note of the word moreover. Now, because this is an opinion essay and whatever you'll be discussing are points that support your particular opinion, it is safe to begin your second paragraph with moreover because moreover is something that builds on what has been said previously, something that extends points to support an already existing point. So it's safe to start with moreover, or you could say additionally. That is how you start your second paragraph in opinion essays. Moreover, additionally, or furthermore, every student grows in a home, whether surrounded by biological or adoptive relatives, and cooking, sewing, and woodcraft are often normal day to day activities. It will be a gross waste of time and energy to teach this in school because they are comprehensively covered at home. If you find it difficult to think of what you're going to write in this explanation sentence, what you should ask yourself is why and so what if every student grows in a home whether surrounded by biological or adoptive relatives and cooking, sewing, and woodcraft are often normal day-to-day activities. How does that answer the question whether vocational subjects should not be taught in school or not? You say it will be a gross waste of time and energy to teach this in school because they are comprehensively covered at home. Now, this would be an appropriate answer to that question. For example, I started with for instance, research statistics show that young women who grew up around elderly women that cooked are great chefs. It is therefore unnecessary to spend time on these kinds of subjects. Then the link, like I said, it links all you've been saying in this particular paragraph to a portion of the introduction, or it simply summarizes the whole idea of the paragraph. Rather, more time should be allocated to the theoretical subjects. So all of these points that were made in this paragraph earlier on were points that pointed out to the fact that it is inappropriate to teach vocational subjects in school because they are already taught at home. So we are summarizing by saying all the time in school should be allocated to theoretical subjects. Now, this is the work we've been doing so far. This is our introduction, the main body paragraph 1 and the main body paragraph 2. And pause the video and craft your own main body paragraph 2 before proceeding to the conclusion part of this essay. Now, conclusions are used for final positioning and summary of already discussed points in main body paragraph 1 and 2. New points should never be introduced here. So remember, the points we gave to support our stance include that the vocational subjects are time demanding and they're already being taught at home. So it will be inefficient to teach, to spend time, a valuable time in school, teaching something that students already learn on a daily basis at home. So, aside from these 2 points that you started off with in the introduction, when you get to the conclusion, you should stick to them. Always remain with them. Don't start or introduce a new idea here because you make the examiner confused and you lose marks on that because the essay will be scattered. It will not be coherent. A good conclusion should have 2 or 3 sentences at most. The sentences should include a paraphrase of the discussed point and a paraphrase of the thesis statement. When you do that, your conclusion should be fine and good. So let's see how we're going to structure our conclusion. Remember what we said earlier. We said the conclusion should be made of 2 or 3 sentences, and those sentences would include a paraphrase of the discussed points, which include the points you discussed in main body paragraph 1 and the points you discussed in main body paragraph 2. And then the last sentence would be a summary of your thesis statement. A thesis statement is simply your opinion statement, which you wrote in the introduction. So on the left here, we have main body paragraph 1. You could also bring down your introduction because still the introduction has the outline and the outline contains the 2 points that formed the foundation or the building block for the main body paragraphs. So in this case, I just brought down the main body paragraph 1 because we are going to be paraphrasing or summarizing the whole idea of the paragraph in a simple single sentence. So I started with to conclude. In doing your conclusions, I advise you stick to just 2 ways of doing that because they are not going to be given an extra mark for using very, very large or heavy vocabulary. So you could start with to conclude or in conclusion. You should try to stay away from finally or in a nutshell. Those sound really kind of informal and or statements like generally. So when you start your conclusion with generally, it doesn't signal to the examiner that you are summarizing. It signals instead to the examiner that you're generalizing. And the conclusion is not a place for you to generalize. It is a place to conclude. So preferably you should start your conclusions with to conclude or in conclusion. Because culinary skills, sewing and woodcraft can be learnt at home. That's the paraphrase 2.1. That's to say, because these skills are time demanding and they can be learnt at home. Students should be allowed to spend their entire school time on the other theoretical subjects. So you see how we've interwoven the 2 points to form a single sentence. And this single sentence completely reflects all that has been discussed in the earlier parts of this essay. Then finally, on the left here is the main body paragraph 2, and this was a source for paraphrase for paraphrasing the second part of this sentence in the conclusion. Now, the third part of the conclusion would be paraphrasing the thesis statement. And what's the thesis statement? On the left here, I have the introduction, and this is the thesis statement. This essay agrees that home economics and craft should be taught primarily by friends and by family and friends. So how do we paraphrase that? After a full stop, we say, therefore, family members and friends should be left to the task of teaching the vocational skills. As easy as that. It might look difficult, but by the time you go over this and practice, will get your hands busy with some real IELTS test questions, you get better at it as you practice, definitely. You're not going to get better at it by watching numerous videos, but you're going to get better at it by practicing, getting your hands busy. This is the whole essay, the introduction, the main body paragraph 2, and the conclusion. So go over it try to understand and see how we used all the strategy we discussed, and then try to rewrite the essay in your own words. You could write for the same side I supported or write against the side I supported. And that would help you. I even advise you write on both sides to just keep you actively practicing. Thank you very much. See you in the next class.